Today on the podcast, I am very excited to introduce you to Caroline Anderson, who is a performance psychologist and her business is Performance Ed Psychology. It's wonderful to have you here today, Caroline.
Thanks, Kate. It's really great to be here, and I'm really looking forward to today's conversation.
Yeah, me too. This is one of my favourite conversations because I love psychology. I love people, and you're very much in this space, clearly. Can you share with us? You're an Olympian, and in the Athens Olympics, and you led the team, or you're part of the team for Paris in 2024.
Yes, the
right?
lead psychologist for the Australian Olympic Committee for the Paris Olympics.
Fantastic. So can you tell us how an Olympian in taekwondo ends up running a performance psychology business?
Oh, that's a complex
story, but just tell us the
part of my story is that I always had a fascination with psychology. I knew from a young age that that's what I wanted to do. I remember asking my school, they didn't offer psychology in year 11 and 12 VCE. And I remember asking them, look, this is what I want to do. I'm really interested. Can you look at offering this as a course? And they were like, no, we don't do that. But I already knew by year 10, year 9, year 10, that was the direction I was going in. I worked very hard. I got through uni and, obviously became a qualified psychologist 20 years ago. But alongside of that, side quest kind of happened, which I wasn't expecting along the way, which was I started a sport. I'd always been quite sporty. I enjoyed sport. Like I was a sports captain at school and always kind of was okay at stuff, but never took it overly seriously until one day I started, probably about 16, 17, walked into a studio and started taekwondo. And I just loved it. I loved everything about it. I had a great relationship with my coach. It was fun. I loved that it was a bit different, a different sport. And I really gravitated towards the sparring and fighting side of it. And I remember my first competition was a disaster, but I just loved it. I couldn't quite describe the feeling of what it was like to compete. The most challenging thing I'd done probably, but also the most rewarding and fun. It just sort of started this area that I became super passionate about. But even the early first year or two, I just saw it as a bit of fun, recreational sport. But one thing led to another, and it all happened quite quickly that I started competing nationally. I got selected for a national team quite quickly. I ended up being a reserve athlete for the Sydney Olympics, 2000 Olympics. And then that was just such a cool experience to be part of. I got to see my friend Lauren Burns win a gold medal, and we had another athlete on the team, Daniel Trenton, win a silver medal. Like it was just and obviously being a home country Olympics, it was just such an amazing, cool thing to be a part of. And that obviously cemented my determination to keep going for another cycle, and I was very lucky and worked really hard to then qualify for the 2004 Olympics. So, as I was training for the Olympics, I was studying full-time and then working full-time and was kind of doing both of these things simultaneously. But I guess I kind of saw them quite separate. And after the 2004 Olympics, I retired and was very excited to go off into my world of psychology and work. And I obviously started working in the field, but not initially in this space. I initially was working more in mental health and clinical settings, which I think was fabulous because it gave me a really solid knowledge and grounding and experience in, some pretty tricky environments because I worked in different hospitals and so on and so forth. I worked in the UK in early intervention. And it was probably about 10 to 12 years ago that I started coming back more into the sports and performance landscape. I think that break away from sport was really good. I think I needed a bit of space and, I was happy to go off into other things. But now the beauty is I get to, combine two things that are really important to me, which is kind of the sports and performance element and psychology. So that's kind of how I landed here many years later.
And then you're working with various sporting bodies and that now. That's your main area, working in sports?
So I run a private practice where we're a team of 4 psychologists there in Melbourne, and I guess there we have the broader banner of performance more generally. So I guess people automatically sort of think sports, but it's not just sports. It may be professionals. Our second biggest kind of cohort other than athletes is doctors. Actually, we work a lot, and if you think about performance pressure and the challenges, passing their medical exams, their consultancy exams, all of that is immense pressure and years of training, yet alone performing surgery, which literally is life or death, that they are dealing with a lot and don't often get taught the skills or have the support around that. So they are starting to realize that performance psychology can be something that can be of help. So, but it's other professionals, it might be other people in leadership, it might be other sorts of professions, like people in specialist operations, for example, within policing or military. It might be actors, musicians, dancers. We've had reality TV contestants. We've had politicians. It can be quite broad, I guess.
Yeah.
We have master's levels athletes. I work with 8-year-old athletes all the way through. So it's quite varied. And I love that, that work there is really broad. And I guess I can utilize a range of different clinical skills in that space.
Yeah.
In terms of sport, yes, then I sort of work within or consult to various other organisations. So I've had various roles at the AIS, been with the Victorian Institute of Sport for about 8 or 9 years now, which I absolutely love working there, and that's obviously predominantly with sports or only with sports. I consult externally to a range of different sporting organisations like the AFL or the cricket, for example, where either current or past players can access external psychological support external to their club, or again, if they're retired, they can have that access as well. And probably the last one is that I work for a professional netball team in Melbourne. So that's, really fun and exciting role there.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Very impressive. So tell me, what's the common denominator in this high performance space? Like, what's the common denominator that people are challenged with when they are in a high performance world? Is there something, is it the sense of failure or the shame, or is there anything that unites these people, have a common issue?
So many things. Probably one of the most, I would say 2 things. The first thing that springs to mind is people in high performance are very hardworking and determined. Working hard is not hard for them. They're driven by, they're highly motivated individuals that set themselves lofty goals and can work towards those things. That's almost not the hard bit for them. The hard bit is learning sometimes how to moderate that, in that they probably can have a propensity to overwork, overtrain, overthink, overdo. Like they're probably not very good at learning how to, like often it's sort of, they go quantity over quality, or it's always about the recipe for success is to do more and to work harder. And yet I would say that's not always about success. There's a nuance. I'm not saying high performers shouldn't be working hard, but there's more to it than that. And what can often happen is they're at risk then of it negatively impacting on their mental health and their well-being and their health, right, overall. I've had people reach, real high performers reach absolute burnout, or have some pretty complex health issues come up, or just are exhausted and start to lose a bit of that motivation and enjoyment for what they're doing because they're doing too much and don't know how to moderate it. So I think that that's definitely a really common theme in high performers.
Yeah.
And probably then the other category, one of the most, again, there's so many, but probably the other most common one is just dealing with the natural, normal doubt, worry, fear that comes along with doing difficult things, right? Like anytime someone signs up to do something difficult, there's a fear of loss, of it not going well, of doubt, of uncertainty. And often how people either naturally try to deal with that or are maybe taught by society in a way of how to deal with that actually can be really unhelpful. And that can often kind of exacerbate it, where then they just feel bad or feel worse about having doubt or fearing failure or experiencing performance anxiety. And I would just say that doubt, worry, nerves is actually much more common than what anyone would recognize or realize within high performance or within performance, generally speaking. I would say it's almost the opposite. I would say it's unusual when I come across someone who's just cool, calm, and collected, doesn't, I mean, that's not really human nature, right? But I think people don't expect that and don't, as I said, don't necessarily have the tools to manage.
I think one of the things that I find really interesting around leaders that I see is insecurity. It is the doubt, the insecurity. And sometimes what I find is the more insecure somebody looks, the more they try and mask it. And there's this bravado of, I've got this. And it's like, you so don't. Like, the more you tell me you've got it, the less I think you do.
Yes.
Is that what you see?
Yes. I mean, yeah, they can try to fake it. Try to, externalize that, or, and there's so many behaviors that we can see, like putting others down, or, getting aggressive, or, I mean, there's a lot of ways in which we can manage that. But I'd say probably the main way that I see is people just internalizing it and just feeling bad about feeling that way, or not understanding, or worrying about how that is going to negatively impact on performance. And I guess this brings up like a really interesting topic within it, whether it's sport or leadership or any of those domains. I think there's this kind of idea that people have to feel confident in order to be able to perform. And I sort of have some, issues with that, basically, right? Because I would argue that confidence is a feeling. And like most feelings come and go, and they go up and down and they change. And, someone can 1 minute feel very confident in something, and literally something happens and they lose all that confidence in the next moment. And that is a normal, part of life, right? And I think what the problem is, that not feeling confident when you're about to stand up and give a speech or do a podcast or run in a race doesn't feel very comfortable. It doesn't feel very good in that moment. And so people will automatically associate that means that something bad is going to happen in terms of the outcome. And I would say how you're feeling doesn't necessarily have to dictate the outcome. It's what you're doing and what you're focusing on. But if you're worried about how you're feeling, if you're trying to change it or battle it or fight it, ultimately that's going to be a distraction. That's going to be, your mind is now not focused away from what you need to do right now to trying to fix, change, solve how you're feeling. And I think that's often where the problem lies.
Okay. So is that then feel the fear and do it anyway, and just know that being uncomfortable is okay?
And really,
okay. I love that. That makes so much sense. But it's understanding it. And so knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
In that space.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because you see it all the time in sport. And I've seen it netball, because I follow the 36ers and the Thunderbirds, and also not the 36ers, but they are our Adelaide basketball team. But also I'm a huge Port supporter in the AFL. And you can see, and seriously, you can almost feel the psychology happening. You can see the anxiety happening in the moment. I can remember when Port lost to the Bulldogs in the preliminary final, and I could tell you in the first minute of that game that they were going to lose that. I just knew that the team that ran on the oval that day, psychologically, were not equipped to deal with the pressure of that game. And they got thumped. And yet they were the top team that year. And it was fascinating. And I'm always intrigued, to me, because I think that's what I love about team sport, elite team sport. It's like you're watching the psychology happen in the moment.
Yeah.
And you can see the bravado of the team that gets the upper hand, and then they lift, and the confidence and the ball just bounces the right way, and everything just happens. It looks like magic, but it's not. It's so clearly their mindset, their psychology in that moment, that things have changed. We've now got the upper hand. We've the other team now are not confident. You can just see how it plays out. I think it's fascinating.
It's not
Now, this is a very important question to me, but I've had this conversation with lots of people over time. But when a team has that moment where there's that doubt, and so they become avoidant, where's that triggered from? Like, is there a person on the field that is powerful, emotionally powerful? Like, how does a whole team get impacted, where does that psychology start? Because you can see the whole team can suddenly crumple.
Team dynamics, and
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
been
Oh yeah, I just think it's fascinating. I love watching it because you can see the cascade. You can absolutely see it play out. It's fascinating. Now you have written a book for children in the high performance space, which I think is really. I know we're sort of moving, but when you think about high performance, we often think about leadership, but leadership starts, at school, and we learn how to lead from our childhood. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen along our childhood that really impact on us as leaders, or how we respond to the workplace and that. I think that I've got a child who is in that high performance space. I've got a niece who's in that high performance space. She's a golfer. She's just extraordinary, and she played at Live Golf in the.
Amazing.
She got invited to do the day before Live Golf. Like, she is really good at golf. Amazing. But there's so much pressure. I mean, it's pressure at a young age when we're not necessarily have all of the skills to cope with it. And also for parents, it's a bit daunting. Like, it's really exciting, but it's also incredibly daunting. Like, how do you protect your child in that space? Oh yeah. Yeah. Because it feels good and it's measurable. It's really interesting. And I think that purpose is really important. And I know that pretty much every AFL team has as its mission statement or vision statement or whatever, that it is to win grand finals. Right. Okay, so you exist to win grand finals, and that in itself isn't very helpful, apart from, at what cost. But the port did have for a while as included in its vision statement, and make the community proud. And then they've dropped that now down a little level to mission statement and not vision. But I just like that, because those two things, what's the point of winning a grand final if you don't make the community proud?
Or if you're
right.
Connection.
I think watching Ash Barty when she won Wimbledon, and her speech and her thank you, and recognising that she won it, there she's standing by herself. She's played the game, but she thanks her team, and just her grace. She was just so gracious and humble in that moment, and it was beautiful. And then for her to retire when she had Australia desperately wanting her to go on and win more Grand Slams, because we want the gold medal. We want to be able to say, Australia's own, and we want to own her, but we don't own her. And she is just extraordinary. Yeah. She's a great role model for young people to look to. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. This has been magnificent. Thank you so much for this chat. This half an hour always goes incredibly fast.
It does.
Can tell us where we can buy the book? Get Secret Strength. I think that's a fantastic resource. I think it's something parents need. It's hard enough being a parent, and then you add, and it feels exciting, but it's complex. It's really hard. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Caroline. I really enjoyed this. I love talking about sport. I love talking about Port Adelaide Football Club, and I love talking about psychology. Talk about win-win-win. Thank you. See you later.